Hello everyone, my name is Sahil and welcome to another episode of Synth Saturdays. Today I want to discuss something that I've seen in a lot of engineering videos or mixing videos where engineers add their mixing chains after or mix bus chains after they have done the mix. So the point that I want to make is that you should start with your mix bus chains or your music bus chains because the way your channels interact with the mix bus and the music bus settings affect how you mix into them. Let's see this production that I was about to start mixing. This is my normal chain. I've explained in other videos why I use these particular plugins on my input on every channel, a tape and a console emulation. You can watch my other videos if you want to see why I do that. And my usual music bus chain, bus compressor, a tape, and the God particle. I have explained these chains already, but what I want you to pay attention to while I mix in this, and I will be my mix bus chain on and off, is that the decisions that I make while mixing are very much affected by what I have on as processing on the buses above it. If I have a drum bus compressor, let's say I have this, then everything that I do, faders, EQ, compression on any of these individual drum tracks, kick, snare, toms, whatever, each decision will be affected by my processing on the drum bus. Similarly, anything that I do on the drum bus will be affected by what I have on the rhythm bus. If I make any change in the acoustic guitar, then whatever processing I have on the acoustic guitar, if I have acoustic guitar bus, if I have any, that will affect my decision on the individual channel. So I'll start with my usual process of mixing like I usually do and start with the balancing. But I want you to pay attention and I'll try to keep in my mind how the mix bus affects my choices, but keep in mind and try to follow along and see how the mix bus would affect anything that I'm doing on individual channels. Before that, let's quickly go through what I have on my mix bus, and I'll also explain what actions on the individual tracks can affect this and vice versa, how this can affect my decisions on the individual channels. So I have a simple bus compressor. This is a VBC virtual bus compressor by Slate, and so these are a combination of 3 compressors, but I'm only compressing with the top one. I still have to dial it exactly, but this works roughly. And this is on the music bus. The second is an FG Red, which is, I think, a Scarlett bus compressor emulation. Again, I've just turned this off. I don't need too much. The last is a Fairchild emulation, which is not doing any compression. I just like the tone of this. This is a tube compressor / limiter, so I've just used this for tube saturation. We can turn this on and off. Adds a very nice crispness, like a 1 to 3K, 4K, maybe that range probably. I think the lower of the mid-range, 1 to 3K. Adds a very nice crunch and saturation to that part. This is all only on the music bus. If I on and off the entire rack, then so right now you'll realize that since this is my production, I've brought all of this in without music bus processing. I only had the God particle on. So if I turn this off, track technically sounds more balanced. At least to my ears, it sounds more balanced without the processing. This is because I didn't have this on during the production process. When I produce this is my production only. And when I was producing this, I balanced everything, tone shaped everything according only to the God particle. Since the bus compressor is doing a decent amount of change to the entire signal, because even if there's a few dBs of compression and just some saturation, small changes can affect the mix bus by a decent amount or the music bus by a decent amount. So that changes the balance of the song quite a bit. which means that I will have to essentially rebalance or look at the balance again because my bus compressor changed the balance of the mix. This is why it's important, in my opinion, to start with your default bus processing before you start, because if I did this at the end of my mix, if I had every track mixed and my mix was sounding nice, whatever, and after that I added this and it sounds like something different, that just means extra effort on my end to go back to the mix and change things, which I think applies for everything, not as much to the tape, because this is not that, what is the right word? This is not that, doesn't bring that big of a difference. Since these two things are bringing EQ and compression differences which I didn't account for during the production, I will have to tweak my production or mix, whatever, to suit the production to this. Which is why it's important that you have a basic mixing chain, fix this, because I see this is technically in some way top-down mixing. So I see a lot of people who do top-down mixing who just stack like 10 plugins on each. So don't do that. Have a limited set of plugins on your mix bus, on your music bus, whatever is your workflow. But use those repeatedly. Use the same chains over and over, however it feels right to you. And then don't focus on too much on plugins on the higher buses. Then you can focus on mixing the individual layers. So with all that said, my normal process for mixing is starting with the balance, then proceed channel by channel. In this episode, I'll try mostly to just balance out the entire track, and I'll see if I have time, then we can do some processing. And also in my balancing, I do include, although I do have balanced the tape levels on whichever tracks I want. So I've turned the input and output accordingly on tracks, and I've adjusted everything on each channel. But I still am in the leveling process. So it's okay for me to still tweak these two initial plugins and then start with the balance. So before, and if you don't remember what I do from these two plugins, I'm just essentially emulating like an analog workflow where the first is the recording tape. Any instrument being recorded through a tape, and then that tape being sent to a console. This is a very nice plugin called Front Door, which is essentially an emulation of different consoles. The BR is a Brit console, which is I think a Neve. Then the US, and the US is the what's the right console? I think that is the API. G is the Germanium consoles, German consoles. MG is a magnetic tape, and CL is clipping. So I like the Neve sound, so I use the BR setting. I would also like to see if the music bus needs the front door or not. This is still something that I'm experimenting with. Those three plugins, otherwise from this, are my usual mix bus chain, but I tried using front door on the music bus once, and I did like it, although with less mojo. So mojo is essentially the amount of saturation that the plugin adds. I think I do like what this is doing. Okay, I do like it. Let's keep this on the music bus. Not worry about the main bus. That is fine. Okay, let's start with the leveling. I start with the choruses. Pick any one chorus, preferably the more busier one. Like that, the first one better in terms of as a starting point. And keep in mind while I level that everything feeds into the music bus. So if for whatever reason I think that the drums are less, if I try to boost them, look at the gain reduction that changes. This changes the amount of gain reduction, and more importantly, it changes how the entire mix sounds. makes my entire mix. What's the right word? Makes my entire mix pump, and you can only hear the drums and not too much else. So I'll undo that. Okay, now for the balance. I'll keep this compressor open somewhere else. Okay, I'll try and balance with this large compressor window, but I'll want to keep in mind to not change the gain reduction level too much. That is better. Since these are VST drums, I am inclined not to change leveling too much. I might not know saturation. The characteristic of Neve consoles is cuts in the low mids and boost in the, I think, mids and the lows. I'm not sure about the mids, but there's usually a boost in the lows. So that helps the kick a decent amount. I don't want too much tape on this because that will ruin the transients of the kick and snare. Overheads might be a little bit louder for me to hear. I think I can, so. I think that is a parallel drum bus send. That is fine. I do want to push this a little more. Again, there's a decent amount of level change, but even with the level change, I think there's this. I think so. I know this changes the EQ and compression a little bit. That is fine. I'll also check if it's changing the drum bus compressor too much or not. Like I pointed out initially, that bus processing can affect your decisions. So me doing all that has put more level into the bus compressor. But I like the compression on the drum, so that's fine. The low end on this will slightly clash with other things. I can do some basic corrections while balancing as well. So initially, I have these low piano parts where there's no bass. I hope there's no bass. Yes, there's no bass. So that I can duplicate that and keep this. Again, doesn't sound very balanced. I'll have to balance that properly, but that is why volume balance is very important. So that sounds very different. Thankfully, this has a low pass or high pass filter. Hitting the compressor too much at some points. But back to the point, that sounds much better than the lows. This is nice. I also should pan something. Let's look at this, do this in the right, and use that part on the left. This needs some EQ correction. I can just add something. It's fine. This needs a little more warmth. And that is about it for this part. Now, my balancing has overloaded the compressor a bit, so I'll adjust the threshold. Now for the guitars. Nice. Strings. Nice. Needs reverb. Let's add that as an. Again, these are things I should have done in the production. These are not mixing things. I should have added the reverb then and there and put it. So some extra things that I'm doing are only covering up for the production and not necessarily mixing it. The main mixing here is doing the levels. Let's shift that just a pitch part to a different track and add some more saturation. I do hear some pumping. this to the left. And this to the right. So what I usually try to do with panning is to balance both sides. So I don't want one side to feel too heavy. So I balance pan one to the left, pan the other to the right. This can be much more crispy. Pancake. This. Okay, this sounds fine. I could do a lot more. I will do a lot more off camera probably, but I think I made my point of why it's important to start with any mix bus processing or music bus processing that you want, and then start from them and keep that in mind, whatever that bus is doing, processing on the bus is doing, and be mindful while you make changes. And don't, again, this is what I believe, everything is subjective, but I believe better to add any processing before you start rather than after you start, because that changes the mix entirely. Any mix bus processing will entirely change the sound. So that's about it. Thank you for watching another episode. I hope you learned something from this. I hope this was helpful. And leave a comment down if you liked anything in particular. If you have any questions, if you liked me to cover anything in particular, leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe for more videos. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. So thank you. Bye bye.